Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 27. Audio source: WuXiaWorldAudiobook.com. Dallying Hualien, Nightfall in Sinner's Pit. Kamo, what's going on? The head priestess asked as she landed. The moment she spoke, Xie Lian thought her voice was very different than what he had imagined. Although still cold, her voice was tiny, like the grumblings of a sulky child, not one that's cool and powerful. If not for his good hearing, he might not even hear her properly. What's going on? They're all dead, Kamo shouted. How did they all die? The head priestess asked. Isn't it because you pushed them all down and trapped them in this god-forsaken hell? Who's here? There's another person, the head priestess said. At the bottom of the pit there should be two other people, but San Lerlang had no breaths nor heartbeat, so the head priestess didn't detect his presence. It was also complete chaos on top of the walls earlier, and no one kept track of who fell in and who ran away, so she thought there was only Xie Lian there. It was they who killed all of my soldiers. Are you happy now? Everyone you wanted to kill are finally dead. The head priestess was silent, and suddenly a tiny burst of light flared, illuminating a small, black-clad girl with a palm flame. The girl looked to be 15 or 16, both eyes blackened, not unbeautiful, but just unhappy, her forehead and cheeks full of bruises, clear and distinct under the light. The hand controlling the palm flame was shaking, causing the flames to flicker. If it wasn't confirmed earlier, no one would think this pale little girl was the head priestess of Ban Yu. The flames in her hand illuminated herself and her surroundings. Next to her feet was piled with armored corpses of Ban Yu soldiers. Xie Lian couldn't help but sneak a look beside him. That palm flame in the head priestess' hand was very small, and did not light up the entire pit, so they were still immersed in darkness. But using the little light, Xie Lian could still see faintly that the one next to him was dressed in red. It wasn't clear, and he wasn't sure, but he could still somewhat distinguish what's close to him. Sanling was already taller than him, but now, maybe, he seemed taller than before. Xie Lian moved his eyes up, paused at the neck, then continued upward, stopping at an elegantly shaped chin. Sanling's upper face was still hidden in the shadows, but Xie Lian thought the bottom half was distinctly different than before. Still handsome, but the lines were much more defined. Feeling he was being watched, Sanling tilted his head, and his lips shifted slightly upwards. The slight shift was oddly mesmerizing. The two were already standing side by side. But if Xie Lian wanted a good look at Sanling's entire face, he'd have to be closer, and without realizing it, Xie Lian took another step closer when suddenly Kamo wailed in the distance, seeming to be in shock after seeing the bloody tragedy before him. Xie Lian turned his head towards them, and despite the general's cries, the head priestess' expression remained wooden, and said simply, "Good. They're finally freed." In the midst of mourning, hearing those words made Kamo rage once more. Good? What's good? How do you mean? The anger didn't look faked, so he must really hate the head priestess. They've all been liberated, she said, and turned to Xie Lian, who's still shrouded in the dark. Were you the one who killed them? Her words were in perfect Han dialect one and not at all in a disrespectful tone. This was an accident, Xie Lian said. Who are you? The head priestess asked. I'm a heavenly official. This one here is my friend, Xie Lian replied. Kamo couldn't understand their words, but could still tell they weren't fighting, and demanded, What are you two saying? The head priestess looked Xie Lian over-eyed Sanling for a moment before quickly looking away and said, We've never had heavenly officials visit before. I thought you've all already abandoned this place. Xie Lian had thought they would have to fight the head priestess of Ban Yu, but was surprised to find she was this despondent, devoid of any will to fight. She spoke up again. Do you two want to leave? This was a strange conversation, but Xie Lian continued to talk amicably. We do, but there's an array set in this pit, so we can't. Hearing this, the head priestess walked to one of the walls, raised her hand and drew something, then turned around and said, "There, I released it." This was way too easy. Xie Lian really didn't know what to say now. Just then came a voice calling from above. "Is anyone down there?" It was Fu Yao's voice. Xie Lian heard San Lang Tisk next to him, and immediately looked up. There was a shadow of a man looking down into the pit, and Xie Lian shouted, "Fu Yao, I'm down here." Xie Lian waved, and Fu Yao shouted back from above, "You're actually down there. What's at the bottom?" A lot of things. Why don't you come down and see for yourself?" Xie Lian said. Fu Yao probably thought the same, and blew a large ball of fire into the pit. In an instant, the entire sinner's pit was lit up, bright like day, and Xie Lian finally saw clearly the kind of place he's been standing in. All around him were mountains of bloody corpses piled high. Innumerable bodies of the Banyu soldiers stacked on top of each other, faces and limbs blackened, dark blood smearing the bright armors. The corner Xie Lian was standing was the only spot in the entire sinner's pit that did not have a dead body. This was all done in a flash, in the dark by San Lang after he jumped in. Xie Lian turned to look at the boy next to him again. Before, in the dark, he thought San Lang looked taller and was distinctly different in various places, but now, under the bright firelight, the one standing next to him was the same handsome teen he'd known. When he saw Xie Lian looked over, he grinned. Xie Lian looked down to check his wrists and boots, and both were also the same as before, nothing out of place, but he understood. With Fu Yao coming, it was better to hide anyway lest there'd be more trouble. Just as he was thinking this, Fu Yao landed in the pit having jumped in too. "Weren't you looking after the merchants?" Xie Lian asked. Having just entered the pit, Fu Yao wasn't yet used to the stench of blood and fanned his hand, and said indifferently, "We waited for over 6 hours and there was still no sight of you, so we figured something had happened. I drew a circle for them to wait in, and came to check things out myself." A circle naturally meant a protection array, but Xie Lian frowned. "The circle won't last long. With you gone, what if they leave the circle thinking you'd left them behind?" Fu Yao shrugged. 8 horses can't stop a man who really wants to seek death. "I can't stop stubborn people, say nothing. What's with those 2 over there? Who's who?" Fu Yao was tense, ready to defend against the 2 unknowns, but soon discovered astonishingly that Kamo was already heavily wounded on the ground, barely able to stand, and the head priestess of Banyu had her head lowered and silent. "That one is the general of Banyu, and the other one is the head priestess of Banyu. They." Kamo suddenly leapt up before Xie Lian could finish. He had been lying on the ground gathering his strength, and was finally able to jump up in a shout, aiming his fists at the head priestess of Banyu. A large, brawny warrior attacking a little girl. In the past, Xie Lian would never allow this sort of thing to happen before him. But Kamo had every reason to hate the head priestess, and she could very well defend herself, yet she didn't, so it wasn't Xie Lian's place to get involved in the personal grudges of others. Kamo shouted at the head priestess, "Where are your scorpion-tailed snakes? Come on, let them bite me to death too. Give me that release." The head priestess got thrown around like a rag doll, and gloomily replied, "Kamo, my snakes don't listen to me anymore." "Then why don't they kill you?" he humphed. "I'm sorry, Kamo," the head priestess whispered. "Do you really hate us that much?" The head priestess shook her head and Kamo became angrier. "Then why don't you seek revenge on those you hate? You were the head priestess. If you wanted to kill, we would have done it for you. Why did you betray us?" The more Kamo spoke, the deeper in hatred he sunk, and gripped a fistful of her hair. Fu Yao watched him strike harder and harder, and the blows were all single-sided, and frowned. "What are they saying? Shouldn't we go to stop them?" Xie Lian couldn't watch any more either, and rushed forward to stop Kamo. "General, I think there are things still misunderstood between you. Please calm down." What's more to say? Everything's clear as day, Kamo said. Xie Lian couldn't say where it didn't feel right either, just that there was an important piece missing in all of this. Suddenly, the head priestess grabbed his wrist. The grip was hard and came unexpectedly, and Xie Lian's heart jumped, thinking she was going to ambush him. But when he looked back down at her, the head priestess was on the ground, her head raised, watching him intently. Her dark eyes were intense, a small bruise at the corner of her mouth, her lips quivering. She didn't say a single word, but looked as if she had a million things to say. This demeanor overlapped with an image from a memory far away. After a pause, Xie Lian blurted, "It's you?" The head priestess' voice also trembled. "General Hua?" This back and forth stunned everyone in the pit. Fu Yao rushed forward, knocked Kamo out with a punch, and asked, "You two know each other?" Xie Lian didn't answer him. He knelt down, gripped the shoulders of the head priestess, and examined her face. Earlier they stood too far apart and he couldn't see clearly. Plus it had been over 200 years. This girl had matured in that time, and for many various reasons, he didn't recognize her the first time. But now that he looked again properly, it's the same face in his memories. Xie Lian couldn't believe it, and couldn't speak for the longest time. Then he sighed. "Ban Yu." The head priestess clutched at his sleeves, and the gloomy face suddenly came alive and excited. "It's me. General Hua, do you still remember me?" "Of course I remember you. But..." Xie Lian gazed at her for a moment and sighed. "But what have you done to yourself?" Hearing his words, her eyes suddenly filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Captain," she muttered, and immediately knelt down before him and bent forward, her forehead touching ground, refusing to get up again. Xie Lian tried to pull her up but couldn't, and with so many mixed emotions swirling in his chest, he finally just rubbed his forehead in defeat, feeling his head pound, not wanting to say another word. But in that exchange there was General, this captain, that making it glaringly obvious to the bystanders. Fu Yao was in shock. "Captain? General? You? How did this happen?" "I also wanted to know how all this happened," San Lang said. Xie Lian didn't answer directly, but San Lang only stood there solemnly and didn't push. "Then the tomb of the general is..." Fu Yao pushed. "My tomb," Xie Lian replied. "Didn't you say you only came to collect junk 200 years ago?" Fu Yao questioned. Xie Lian sighed again, watching the black-clad girl prostrating on the ground. "This is a long story. Around 200 years ago, one day, Xie Lian planned to cross the Qing Ridge to go live in the south for some time, so he took up his compass and walked southward. But the more he walked, the more he thought something was wrong, since the sceneries were all wrong. There should be an abundance of trees and greeneries, cities and crowds, so how come his path was becoming more desolate? But suspicions aside, Xie Lian stubbornly continued on, and soon he arrived at the Gobi Desert. It took a gust of wind blowing a fistful of sand into his face before Xie Lian finally realized that his compass was broken, and he had been traveling in the opposite direction. Since there wasn't anything he could do about the whole thing, he might as well take this chance to visit the desert sceneries, and continued walking. Only, he changed course slightly and traveled northwestward, and finally arrived at the border where he settled near Banyu Kingdom. Xie Lian said slowly, "At first, I was just collecting junk. But the border was troubled, and with so many skirmishes, there were often runaway soldiers, so the army would drag anyone in to recruit to make up the numbers." "So you got dragged into the army?" San Lang asked. "Yes," Xie Lian replied. "But doing anything was more or less the same, so it didn't matter to me. And then after chasing away some bandits a couple times, I somehow got promoted to captain. The people thought highly of me and would call me general too." "Why did she call you General Hua?" Fu Yao questioned. Xie Lian waved his hand and said dismissively, "Never mind that. I was using a fake name at the time. I think it was Hua Xie, too." Hearing the name, Sanling's expression slightly changed, his lips twitching, but still unreadable. Xie Lian didn't pay attention and continued. With a battle-torn border came many orphans. When I was free I'd play with them sometimes. One of them was named Ban Yu. Xie Lian shook his head. I had thought that Ban Yu, in the head priestess title, was the country. I didn't realize it was actually the name of the head priestess. In his memories, the little girl Ban Yu was always gloomy, her body and face full of bruises, and when she looked at him she would stare just so from below. She was fluent in the Han dialect and played with similar-aged Midlands children. Xie Lian didn't know where she came from, but she was a random wandering child, so he randomly took her in. When he was free, sometimes he'd teach them songs, sometimes wrestle, sometimes show off his busker move, breaking stones on chests, or something. Because this child was smaller than others, he took extra care of her, and gave her extra rations if they were available, and the two had a good relationship going. And then? Fu Yao asked. And then? It's pretty much the same as what the memorial wrote, Xie Lian said. The memorial said you died, Sanlang said after some silence. On the subject of that memorial, Xie Lian felt quite bummed out. Didn't memorials usually praise the deceased and exaggerate good deeds? All those mentions of the demotions aside, why did it have to truthfully record the embarrassing way he died? While hiding away from the sandstorm and translating the epitaph, when he read to the part of his death, he was so ill at ease that, if it wasn't for Sanlang reading the same thing, he was going to pretend that segment never existed. Having something like that written down, even he wanted to laugh, never mind other people. That he had the nerve to ask those seeking shelter in his memorial to not laugh as they commentated and laughed at his epitaph, it made him feel really bummed. Xie Lian's forehead was becoming red from all the rubbing. Oh, that, of course I didn't die. I faked it. Sanlang said nothing, and Fu Yao had a face full of disbelief. After pretending to die, my corpse was thrown out. I returned to the Midlands and healed up after 5 to 6 years, Xie Lian said. Truthfully, Xie Lian couldn't quite remember exactly how he died, nor why that battle broke out in the first place, only that it was over something petty. He really didn't want to fight. Victory or defeat was meaningless. But by then his rank could go no lower, and no one would listen to him. In the midst of battle, everyone saw red, so when he rushed out, it was blades and swords coming at him from both sides, cutting him down. Even if he couldn't die, he couldn't stand that kind of butchering. Crying, "Oh no!" in his head, Xie Lian dropped to the ground to fake his death, but even in death, he was trampled to the point of passing out. It was water choking him that woke him, because corpses were usually thrown into the rivers after battles. Xie Lian went with the river flow, and floated back to the Midlands like a heap of junk. After he healed, he finally made it to his original destination in the south, and stopped minding what was going on in Banyu Kingdom. "I'm sorry," Banyu muttered again. Translator's notes. Han was the dialect of the Midlands. The name Hua Xie is meaningless, but the character for Hua is the same as the one in Hua Cheng's name. End chapter.